Well, hello there and welcome back to my channel. I thought today I would do a video on my top 12 tips for learning tarot. And this has come about because I recently taught a tarot class to a group of students and we were covering fairly advanced tarot reading techniques, advanced spreads and so on and so forth. But one of the students asked me in the Q&A session at the end if I had any simple tips for people who were learning tarot for the first time. Really, the student was looking for a way of providing tips to other people who expressed an interest in learning tarot. And so I started off sharing what I thought would be a couple or two or three tips, but being the gobby person I am, my list of tips actually expanded to about 12. So when I got back after doing the class, I wrote some of them down, or as many of them as I could remember, because it occurred to me that it would be useful to share them with you, my YouTube audience. I know that many of you out there are already advanced tarot readers, but I also know a number of you follow me who are really at the very beginning of your tarot journey. You might not even yet have dipped your toes into actually reading. Maybe you're lurking on TarotTube, watching videos, maybe you're reading books about tarot, maybe you have a deck or you don't have a deck. You're just beginning to explore the idea of reading. So this video is for you, whether you are a complete newbie to tarot or whether you've been reading tarot for a while and feel like you just like a little bit of a refresher. So without further ado, let's go into my top 12 tips for learning tarot. I've got them on my notes here so I don't forget them. Number 1, remember, there is no such thing as the tarot police. There is no such thing as the tarot police. What I mean by that is there's no absolutely right way to learn to read tarot. There's no absolutely right deck, correct deck to learn with. There's no absolutely perfect, unassailably ideal tarot system. There's no perfect spread. There's no perfect explanation for how tarot works. There's no perfect reason for learning tarot. Any reason that is valid to you is reason enough. So if you want to learn tarot for spiritual development, if you want to learn it so that you can provide insight to yourself or others, if you want to learn it just because it fascinates you and you want to learn it full stop, that is valid reason enough. Now, you will probably encounter people out there who will try to say to you that there is a perfect way to learn tarot or that there is a perfect system. Consider this video my permission slip to you to ignore them entirely. Because there is no perfect way, there's no right way, there's no ideal tarot deck, there's no better or worse. Not when it comes to finding out the right tarot reading path and tarot learning path for you. So forget the tarot police, forget making mistakes and just dive in and get started. Number 2, talking of getting started, give yourself permission to start simply. So tarot, as you probably know, can have lots of other systems attached to it. So you can attach astrology to tarot. You can correspond tarot cards with different planets and zodiac signs. You can attribute the Kabbalah to tarot. You can link the paths and the spheres of the Tree of Life to the tarot deck. You can combine tarot with numerology. You can combine tarot with personality typing systems, with different psychological systems, with different spiritual traditions. All of that, it's all perfectly valid. But tarot is also perfectly valid simply as a closed system in its own right. So if you're not yet ready or are not interested in exploring things like astrology and Kabbalah and magic and all these different things, that's absolutely fine. You never need to add any of those into the tarot system that you're learning unless you want to. So you might be interested in those, and if you are and you would find them a useful way of helping you to learn the tarot, that's great. But equally, if you're not interested in them, that's great too. You do not need to combine any other system with tarot in order to learn it, and in order to learn it to a really high level of proficiency. So give yourself permission to start simply. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is about your first deck. You probably have heard the rumour or the myth that the first deck that you ever get has to be one that's gifted to you. This is nonsense. You can buy a deck. You can buy a new deck or a second-hand deck, a modern deck or a traditional deck, any deck in the world. What's important is that it's a deck that you will like and enjoy using. So tip number 3 is, for your first deck, obtain and use a deck that you like. Now, the one added tip I would give here is that if you're an absolute beginner, it might be an idea to get hold of a deck that has illustrated number cards. What I mean by that is, in some tarot decks, the number cards, let's say the 4 of Cups, will literally just show you an image of 4 cups. And the 5 of Cups will just show you an image of 5 cups, and the 6 of Cups, 6 cups, and so on. Those are pip decks. They're not illustrated, other than the illustration of the suit that's in question. And then you get other decks like the Waite Smith deck, and I have some here, but I bet there won't be any pip cards in them. No, I think I've only picked up I think I might have only picked up majors and court cards. No, I haven't. I have picked up some others. So look, here in the Pentacle suit, we have the 3 of Pentacles and the 5 of Pentacles, and as you can see, these are illustrated cards. So they don't just have 3 Pentacles and 5 Pentacles, they have illustrations on them. They have a group of people learning and studying the architecture here for the 3 of Pentacles, and they have a couple of people locked out of what looks like a church in the snow here for the 5 of Pentacles. Those illustrations tell you something about the meaning of those cards. So if you're a beginner and you struggle to memorize things like meanings, and you struggle to understand, not understand, but to remember what the number and the suit combination means, then having an illustrated deck will possibly help you, but you don't need to. So I know people who've learned tarot perfectly adequately using the Tarot de Marseille, which has got, it's a pip deck, it's got non-illustrated minor cards, number cards, and they still manage to learn tarot perfectly adequately. So it's about finding out what works best for you. That would be my only added tip, that if you are at all concerned about remembering the meaning of the cards, go for an illustrated deck. There's a reason why the Waite Smith deck is the most popular tarot deck in the world. Many reasons. That's one of them. Something else to add in about your decks is, you will see on TarotTube in particular, many people who are tarot enthusiasts sharing multiple decks and sharing their collections of decks. They'll have many unboxings of decks, many reviews of decks. They will be apparently getting lots of new decks as they go along. That's absolutely fine. If you want to be a tarot deck collector, if you're interested in owning lots of decks, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's not necessary in order to be a good tarot reader. You can be an excellent tarot reader only ever owning one deck your entire life. So don't fall into the trap of fear of missing out, or fear that you're not going to learn enough about tarot if you don't get multiple decks. That's not the case. One deck is enough. One deck that works for you. Number 4, so you've got your deck, you're dipping your toes into tarot land. Before you open the little white book or look at a tarot guidebook, my advice to you in tip number 4 is, let the tarot talk to you. What I mean by that is, don't rush straight into learning the meanings of the cards off by heart or looking them up in books. Give yourself a chance to connect with the cards yourself. So when you lay out the cards in response to a question, particularly if you're using an illustrated deck, allow yourself to interpret the cards based just on what you see. Look at the images on the cards. What colours predominate? Look at the figures on the cards, the people. How many people are there? What are they doing? Are they moving? Are they still? If there's more than one of them, are they interacting with each other or are they not? If there's motion in the cards, if they are moving, is that motion, does it seem to be fast motion or slow motion? Are there other things in the cards? Is there scenery in the background? What kind of scenery? Is it natural scenery? Is it man-made scenery, like a building? Just give yourself the chance to notice and interpret what you see as a bit as though you were interpreting a poem or a work of art. Just reflect on how the images make you feel. And what I'd suggest you do is you get a little booklet that can be part of your study kit for learning tarot. Get a little booklet and jot down your impressions of different cards before you start looking up the meaning. That's my my tip. Let the tarot talk to you. You can, of course, go straight to looking up the meaning. There's nothing wrong with that if you want to do that. But I think you'll find if you allow yourself some time to connect with the cards yourself and allow your own response to tell you something about the cards, it'll be very instructive. And if you would like to dive into that a bit more, if you're perhaps somebody who's read tarot for a while and would like to have that experience of seeing the cards anew for the first time, then I'll link a video around here which I did a while ago, which is on connecting with your inner tarot deck, because in that video I give an exercise for seeing a tarot card for the first time again, even if you're very used to that card's meaning. So that will be interesting, I hope, to you, whether you're a seasoned reader or an entirely new reader. Tip number 5, you're beginning to read the cards either through your own responses or by looking up the books. Remember, tip number 5, remember, context is important. So you can pick up a card like the 5 of Pentacles and you can say quite a lot about the card just from what you see, about the people in the card, the condition they're in, the way they're standing and moving, the fact that one of them is on crutches, the fact that they seem to be walking through snow with bare feet, the fact that they seem to be outside a church where light is coming out and spilling out into the outside world where they are. There's all kinds of things you could say about that card just based on that image. I'm sure you're probably noting some impressions in your own mind as you watch this video. But if you have that card in the context of a tarot reading, if perhaps you have asked the card or the cards a particular question, maybe about your relationship with somebody or your future career prospects or health or business, or whatever it is, if that card comes up in relation to a particular question, you're going to have a slightly different impression because you're going to have more context. Context is important. So my suggestion is, when you're learning to read tarot, set a question and then pull a card, either using a spread or not, but pull a card and interpret the card in the context of the question. Again, you'll find this very instructive. Tip number 6, don't be afraid of keywords. So I've spoken about the importance, as I see it, of developing your own relationship with the cards, allowing yourself to interpret the cards when you see them. But at some point you will want to look in the little white book or in the tarot guidebook to find out what the traditional meanings of these cards are, and that's absolutely fine. And you'll notice that certain cards, or all cards, have specific and fairly consistent keywords that are connected with them. So you might notice that, for example, the Empress is often associated with growth and with motherhood and fertility. The 6 of Swords, journey, safety. The 4 of Swords, rest, repose, solitude. The 10 of Cups, family, hope, happiness. What else? The Hermit, solitude, introspection. There's various things that will spring to mind. And what you might want to do when you start to become aware of these keywords is get your study deck And by study deck, I mean a deck that you're willing to scribble on if need be, stick things on in order to help your learning. This is my study deck. I've got little magnets on it so I can stick it on my whiteboard when I'm doing tarot classes. But you could get a bit of tape, maybe like micropore tape, and just stick it somewhere on the card and write the keywords on. So for the moon, we might put illusion or deep thinking, intuition. There's various keywords you could use, and you could stick those keywords on. So that would be my seventh tip. Stick the keywords on your card. So tip number 6, don't be afraid of keywords. And tip number 7, stick the keywords on your card. And the reason I say don't be afraid of them is that some people will frown on the idea of keywords. They'll say, oh, that's not proper tarot reading, just linking a card to a keyword. But the point is, you don't need to be stuck with that keyword. You can use it as a jumping off point. So if your keyword for the Empress is growth, for example, you can allow yourself to free associate from the keyword growth when you're interpreting the Empress. What could growth also imply? Self-development, progress, fertility, motherhood, children, nature, all kinds of things that can just spring off that keyword growth. So don't be afraid of keywords. Don't be afraid to stick them on your card, because when you start reading and learning and you're trying to remember everything, having those keywords to prompt you can help you to start with, and will give you the confidence to be able to expand out of what you're seeing immediately in front of you without having to memorize everything all at once. So that would be another tip. Stick keywords on your study deck. Then, after you've done this for a while, I think probably you're going to get to the point where you'll want to understand, well, why do these cards mean these things? Why does the Four of Swords mean what it means? Why does the Seven of Pentacles mean what it means? Why does the Chariot mean what it means? So, in order to get behind the meanings, there are various ways. One of the simplest ways is almost to carry out a kind of tarot formula in your head. And an important part of the tarot formula is combining the meaning of the suit that you're looking at, whether it's pentacles or swords or cups or wands, rods, whichever name your deck is using for these different suits, and of course the majors, because these suits are traditionally associated with different elements: earth, air, fire and water, and spirit for the majors. So if you have an understanding of the elements, if you understand, for example, that air is related to the intellect, to thinking, and air is commonly associated with swords, then when a sword card appears in the reading, you're prompted to think in terms of intellect, among other things, but let's just stick with that for the moment. And then if you are familiar with the meaning of number in terms of the numerological sequence of the cards, from 0 being the Fool through to 10, and certainly the pip cards being numbered from 1, the Ace, through to 10. If you have an understanding of the numbers, then you can combine the number meaning with the suit meaning and get the meaning of the card. So if you know, for example, that number 1, the Ace, is about inception, about the beginning of things, then you know that the Ace of Cups is going to be about the beginning of cups, associated with water, which is associated with the emotional life. You know that this is going to be about the beginning of some kind of emotional process, some kind of deep feeling process. If it's the Ace of Wands, associated with fire, then you will know that this is the beginning of some creative, generative process. If you are looking at, say, the Four of Swords, the fours are a number of stability. They follow the number 3, which is about growth and movement forward. The fours are about stability and rest. The Four of Swords is about the resting of the mind, the repose within the mind. And if you look at the illustrated cards in the Waite-Smith deck or the Thoth deck and so on, you'll begin to see some of these meanings played out. Not all tarot deck producers agree on meanings, by the way, so you might see slightly different interpretations, but you'll broadly see some of these things played out. But you can also attribute those meanings to the pip cards in decks that aren't illustrated if you understand the meaning of the element and the meaning of the number. So tip number 8 is to get to know the meanings of the elements and the numbers so that you can use this kind of tarot formula. And the formula would be putting together the element meaning, the number meaning, the context of the question that's being asked, and the overall circumstances of that the question is being asked within. All of that will help you divine the meaning of that card in that particular position. Okay, so that's number 8. Tip number 9, experiment. Experiment with spreads, different spreads, and also with no spreads. So you can read tarot freestyle without ever using a spread. If you're a complete beginner, you might find it useful to use a spread because a spread helps give some context. But experiment with different spreads. Learn to use the Celtic cross spread. Learn to use the horseshoe spread. Learn to use 3-card spreads and 2-card readings. All of that is useful in terms of getting used to both the deck and to the process of interpreting the cards in particular positions in relation to particular questions. And to help you along, if it would be useful to you, I'll link some videos to some spreads that I've designed. Very simple spreads. I like simple spreads, and you can play around with those. But it's a great way to get in touch with your own understanding of the cards. Tip number 10: practice reading in different situations. So read when you need guidance around something, but also read when you don't need guidance around something, but you want to reflect on how something has gone. So you can read about things that are about to happen in the future and you want some pointers. I'm getting this sun dappled at the moment. Or you can read about things that have happened in the past and you want to get some perspective on. All of that is a perfectly valid thing to do. So read in different ways at different times in different circumstances, and that will help you to connect differently to the cards at different times. And read for yourself and also for others. Practice reading for others if you haven't. And again, that will give you a different perspective on the cards. That was number 9. No, that was number 10. Practice reading in different situations. Number 11. It kind of loops back to the first point about there being no tarot police. Remember, no one tarot system is better or more authentic than others. All that divinatory tarot is. Remember, tarot started, maybe you don't know this, but tarot started as a game. It started as a card game. And over time, human beings, these ingenious, wonderful creatures that we are, began to apply divinatory meaning to the cards. So we began to find ways of reading the cards in a way that helped us divine for information, understanding, intuition. So tarot reading in the way that we think of it as a divinatory process is a human invention. And as such, it means that there is no one system that's better than another. All divinatory tarot is valid, and it's all emerged from human ingenuity. So whether you're reading the Tarot de Marseille as a pip deck, and you're doing what's called the open reading, where you're simply looking at the way that the figures in those cards fit together and the geometric associations between them, which is a perfectly valid way of reading them. Or if you're reading tarot through the lens of astrology or Kabbalah or mysticism or magic or numerology, any of that, or none of that, if you're just reading tarot in an intuitive way based on your own sense perceptions of the cards, all of it is valid. All of it is valid. So remember, no one tarot system is better or more authentic than another, and don't let anyone tell you that they are, because that just limits your potential then in exploring all the different avenues that tarot has to offer. As you learn and you practice, you'll come across your own preferred style. You'll find the way of reading tarot that suits you best. So trust yourself in that. That's a bonus tip. Trust yourself in learning to read tarot. And then tip number 12, kind of looping all this together, allow yourself to have fun. Reading tarot can be great fun. It's very instructive, it's very educational, you can learn a lot from it, it's very useful if you apply it in an intelligent way. And it's a great hobby to have. There's a whole host of things. I think it was Mary Greer who said that if you learn the tarot, if you study the tarot, you will get a really top-class liberal arts education. And she's so right, because tarot leads on to so many different things, and you can learn an awful lot about many different disciplines if you start reading tarot. But if you only ever read tarot and that's your thing, that's absolutely fine. If you then go on and read other things as well, that's wonderful too. And as the sun dapples my face intently at the end of this video, I will remind you that tip number 12 is allow yourself to have fun. And say, I hope you found these tarot reading tips, or 12 tips for reading tarot, helpful. And I'll see you again very soon. Take care of yourself.